So true story, my wife and I are in downtown San Antonio. We were there for a little retreat, a little class reunion with some of my pastor classmates, and we're having a great time. And we finished dinner, and if you've ever been in San Antonio, then you know about the river walk. So we walk up the steps to the main street level in downtown San Antonio, and it was getting to be a little later at night, so we were trying to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to go back to the hotel and just call it a night? Do we want to have a little more fun together? Well, all of a sudden, as we're standing there, and again, it's at nighttime, so it's dark out, and we're on the street corner, all of a sudden, these two guys who were, well, let's just say, having a good time that night, stumbled along the sidewalk and approached my wife and some of the other pastor wives. And as these guys approached, I sort of stood back at a distance, and not that I wasn't going to protect my wife or be there for her, but she's a big girl and I know she can handle herself, and in fact, the guys ought to be afraid of her because I know she could take them out. But no, I know she was fine, and as they approach her, all of a sudden she strikes up conversation with them. And I'm watching and I'm smiling because I see this little glint and this glimmer in her eye, and I know exactly what is going to happen next. Yeah, the guys kind of made their moves like, hey ladies, what are you doing? And why are you here? And all that kind of a thing. And all of a sudden my wife starts in with, well, actually, we are pastors' wives, and we are here for one of our Christian retreats, and I just wanted to know, do you have a church that you belong to? Do you believe in God? And I just had to smile to myself because before I knew it, sure enough, they were in this deep conversation, and the guy started talking about how he didn't really believe in God, and he was into something scientific like biology or chemistry or chemical engineering or something, and he didn't really think there was a God, and didn't really think that was important. And after a while, I sort of slid into the conversation as well, and lo and behold, we ended up talking for over an hour with these two gentlemen who were kind of sobering up over time, not just literally, but also spiritually, as we started asking the questions, well, do you even know where you would be if you happened to die tonight? And sure enough, by the end of the conversation, the man admitted that his wife had left him, and he was separated from his children. He was from Utah, and he wasn't really sure about the purpose or the direction of his life, and we told him about God and why we know there is a God in brief, and even more importantly, how we know that God loves us, that he sent his son Jesus to live and die and rise again for us so that we can have a new life with him here and forever in heaven. By the end of the night, we exchanged handshakes and hugs, and the guy thanked us profusely. He apologized first for coming on to my wife and some of the other ladies, but then thanked us profusely for taking time to witness to him. Have you ever had one of those conversations before? Maybe in the strangest of places, all of a sudden you find yourself talking about God, witnessing, sharing some of the good news of the Bible. Our meditation today is from Acts chapter 24, sort of a strange place, not only in the Bible, but also in context. The Apostle Paul had just returned from his last mission trip. He came back to Jerusalem rather boldly, though he had been warned about going, and sure enough, they stirred up a riot, and Paul was arrested. But there was a plot to kill the Apostle Paul there in Jerusalem, and so the Romans stepped in. So yes, we are thankful for the government at times, all the time, but sometimes they really come in handy. And so the Romans stepped in, they defended Paul, and 470 plus soldiers took Paul off to Caesarea. And there he was in jail for 5 days until he was on trial before the governor. You know Pontius Pilate, the governor. This was one later. The governor was Felix. And so we cut in today in Acts chapter 24, and you can read the context on your own. But Paul is on trial, and they are just bringing it at Paul. They are accusing him of all kinds of wild things, stirring up trouble all over the land, all kinds of false accusations like people like to do often for Christians or against Christians. And then suddenly Paul speaks. Now, if you were Paul at that time, what would you do? What would you say? You're put on the spot. You're there and it's not fair, and you just want to do mission work. You want to do God's work. You don't belong there. You're innocent. You haven't done anything wrong. All these false charges. What would you say if you were Paul? Would you point the finger and pass the blame? Well, what do you think Paul did? Maybe you know. He took the opportunity to witness, and he explained that the reason that he was there and he was in chains was because of the good news of Jesus Christ. And the last verse for our consideration today, verse 21, he says, "It's on account of the resurrection of the dead that I stand trial before you," on account of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Here's Paul, who takes every opportunity to preach the good news that Jesus Christ is risen. How about you? Do you look for those opportunities? There's a lot of sadness and a lot of frustration in the world today, for obvious reasons, of course. There are many people who are carrying guilt and shame and burdens that weigh them down. And then there are people who just don't know. On top of the people who are against us actively, who are enemies, so to speak. Where can you find time to share the good news of Jesus Christ? There's a reason that there's hurt and pain in this world. That reason is sin. But there's a cure to this virus, so to speak, not corona, but the spiritual virus of sin, and that's Jesus Christ, who was sinless, who died to pay for all sins and rose to life so that we could have peace with God, a restored relationship here and hereafter. Look for opportunities to share that good news. In fact, here's something. How about today, try something virtually? That's what we're doing these days. Why don't you share this video on YouTube or Facebook or somewhere else? Tag someone or share this encouraging message with someone that you think might need to hear it. Or even if you want, comment in the comments below maybe a place that you have shared the good news of Jesus that you didn't expect it, like my wife and myself downtown San Antonio late at night. Maybe you've had a place in an airplane next to someone or in a store. Share that so we can encourage one another and think about our own opportunities to share the good news that Christ is risen. He is risen indeed.